All right. Hey, welcome to the Soapboxx podcast. I am your host, TJ Legacy, and I'm here joined with a great panel. We have a great panel here today. The Soapboxx podcast, the most infamous podcast on your streaming services. And this is one of the reasons why, because we're not afraid to have uncomfortable conversations and really bring it to the forefront. First off, I want to thank everybody for supporting independent Black media. And I want to start off by telling you could make sure you share this feed so we can you can be engaged in the conversation. And I want to start off, as I do, all the way from Tallahassee, Florida. What's going on, Javonni? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on? Hi, everybody. Glad to be back and having some good conversation.
That's what's up. That's what's up. All the way from NYC, my man, co-host Alan York.
Yo, good evening, y'all. Good evening, y'all. Pleasure to be here with y'all tonight. Looking forward to some good dialogue.
Yes, most definitely. And Jesse is not able to be here. However, this is why we can have interchanging parts here with this Black Media Coalition. So you guys know from the episode we did with Black Media Matters. So Morgan, how you doing? Thank you for filling in. Morgan, what's going on?
Hey, what's up? Thank y'all for having me. I'm honored.
No problem, no problem. Thank you. And as you know, how we're building this coalition, we have comedian, someone who's been on the Wild and Out tour in the Southeast region. So he's going to really add some context to the conversation. We have comedian Vincent Taylor. What's up, Vincent? Vince Taylor. I was calling Vincent. Hold on, let me unmute you, brother. Let me unmute you. I swear I'm not trying to play a joke on you. What is up with his? Unmute yourself.
I was just saying hello. That's all.
Appreciate it. I don't know what that was, but hey, I'm glad it happened on the comedian's part. But thank you.
No worries, no worries.
Yes, and we also have. I'm honored to have Dr. Issa White Muhammad. He was a former professor at the University of Central Florida. Also was a high, am I saying this right? A high-ranking official. Is that the official in the Nation of Islam?
That's a good, yes, sir. That's a good way.
Okay,
yes.
All right, good. I wanted to make sure I do it justice. And of course, friend to the show, thank you for being here, Dr. White Muhammad. And of course,
thank you.
Friend to the show, Bishop Swan, appreciate you being here. Always bringing the heat. So I'm honored that last minute you jumped in and wanted to accepted the invitation to join us to have this conversation. So I definitely appreciate you, brother.
Good to be here, man. Looking forward to the conversation.
All right. So Alan, I'm going to let you kick it off. Let's talk about the conversation when we're here. This is the episode's called The Emancipation of Nick Cannon. So what's all the controversy about, Alan?
Well, our brother Nick Cannon is currently under fish grease right now. So to go ahead and give a little bit more context, Nick Cannon has been doing a podcast / YouTube series over the last couple of years called Cannon's Class. Now, in a break from what's normally his pop culture talks or his talent shows, he's actually talking with people who are more in the academia, who are more activists. Also, what inspired him to do this is Nick Cannon actually decided to go back to college a few years ago and recently just graduated from Howard University, the HU, with a degree, and now has a degree in criminal justice. So he had a guest that the video was uploaded a couple of weeks ago by the name of Brother Professor Griffin. If you don't know Professor Griffin, he was previously in NWA, and they let him
Public
go.
Enemy.
Public Enemy, pardon me.
Public Enemy.
Yeah, Public Enemy.
Thank you. Public
Youngster.
He's probably looking at my shirt. I'm sorry, my fault.
I was like, it was the Ice Cube was getting me. Public Enemy, and they did let him go because of allegations of anti-Semitism. So they were having a conversation, and what really got things going is a couple of places. But long story short, he's been accused of anti-Semitism because of some of the comments he made in regards to lighter pigmentation, the mountains in the Caucasus, Also some rhetoric as far as the quote unquote elite, which he insinuated could be the Jewish people, the Rothschilds, etc. So from there, even though the episode came out a couple of weeks ago, over the last 2 days, the clip came out mostly with him talking about the pigmentation and him linking that to a survival strategy. And it seems like he was trying to make sense of the reasoning for, evil and colonialism, predominantly by white people that we've been subject to. And he was called out as soon as the clip went viral for anti-Semitism. Viacom almost immediately, when it went viral, let him go. There is conflict in stories. They said they tried to reach out. He said he tried to reach out, but essentially he was let go of his role. And now we are here, and we are coming off the heels of another anti-Semite conversation with Deshaun Jackson. So this has been plaguing the news for the last couple of weeks. And, it's a lot of different sides that people are speaking of in regards to this. And Nick Cannon did apologize. He did say that he did not mean to cause harm, and he is open to getting more education and getting out to Jerusalem as well as he's been invited.
Well, before we get to the apology, appreciate that, Alan. Before we get to the apology, I want to talk to Bishop Swan with Deshaun Jackson and with Nick Cannon. It seems like in the public eye, where they're trying to have a culture of comparative bigotry when it comes to African Americans and our public figures. Is labeling African Americans, no matter what their views are, or if they speak out against white supremacy, do you view that as the new scarlet letter to our Black public figures?
There is a false equivalency that is part of the clapback narrative of white supremacists against our calls for justice, against our repudiation of white supremacy, racism, and anti-Black bigotry. And so what they have done is they've tried to flip the script, and now the new racism has become calling out racism, exposing the historicity of white supremacy in this nation and beyond has become the new racism. It's all about why can't we just call for unity? Why can't you just stop being divisive, etc., as if unveiling and educating people on the history of racism in America is somehow divisive and not the actual history of racism being divisive. And so the face and the color of these new paradigms are Black faces. So they want to paint the Black man as the face of rape and sexual crimes. So hence, we've got Bill Cosby and R. Kelly and others that are the poster boys of these types of crimes, although you can name dozens and dozens of rich white men who have engaged in this type of activity. But they don't get documentaries on television. They don't get Leaving Neverland. They don't get the R. Kelly stories, etc. And so the other thing is, when we talk about anti-Semitism, any level of pushback against Israel, against the apartheid that happens in Israel, against the extrajudicial murder and state-sanctioned lynching of Palestinians, against the white supremacy that exists in the Israeli government, you're automatically labeled as an anti-Semite. Any type of criticism at all of the Jewish community, whether it's in Israel or in the United States, you automatically get labeled as anti-Semitic. And then any level of support that you give to Black folks who have been labeled as anti-Semitic makes you an anti-Semite yourself. Case in point, a friend of mine, Linda Sarsour, has been plagued by those accusations of being anti-Semitic. We posted a picture she and I took together, and automatically I was anti-Semitic for having a picture with Linda Sarsour. And so what they want to do is tell you that you can only talk according to their narrative, their talking points. And if you differ with them in any way, shape, or form, we're not only going to label you, but here's the problem, is we're going to come after you. We're going to disrupt your life. We're going to, as best we can, take away your livelihood.
Yes.
We're going to cancel you out. We're going to put you on your knees whenever you come out against us. Now, the interesting thing about that is, if you speak in opposition or you run afoul of the LGBT community, you will get canceled. Your livelihood will be canceled. You will be castigated. If you speak in opposition of the Jewish community in any way, shape, or form, run afoul of them, the same thing will happen. But you can nigger all day long. You can call black women nappy-headed hoes like Imus did, get a measly 8-month time out and get back in the industry and run out your career in that. So you can disrespect black people in any way, shape, or form and never get canceled. But if you run afoul of the Jewish community, something altogether different happens to you. And so they're trying to paint the black face, whether it be Nick Cannon, whether it be our dear sister Toni Morrison, and so many others. They're trying to paint our face as the anti-Semites to say that, you know what, black people can be racist too. They can be discriminatory as well.
Do you feel like this is? Do you feel like this is, and because there are people on Twitter, and we need to not Twitter, but in our community, there are people that feel like, wait a minute, a lot of this stuff that is being spewed at Nick Cannon at this point is because of the progress of the movement of the Black Lives Matter protesters, of what's going on in the street, of all the progress that's being made. So they feel like, well, do you feel like this is is there a space for the conversation for anti-Semitism as well as the space for racial equality and justice for African American? Can they be run parallel? Because some folks are saying, well, we got to focus on one rather than the other.
Yeah, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can have those conversations simultaneously. We can talk about injustice against black people and anti-Semitism at the same time. But what they're trying to do is discredit Black Lives Matter or any push by black people for justice by saying, you know what, how can you call for justice when you're anti-Semitic? Or how can you condemn police killing black people when y'all are killing one another? There's always a counter argument. Whenever we begin to talk about justice, they pull out the whataboutism manual and they say, you know what, I hear you. What happened to George Floyd was bad, but what about Chicago?
Yeah,
I hear you. You know, we're discriminating against black people, but what about what Nick Cannon said about Jewish people? Or what about what Mark Lamont Hill said? Or what this one said or that one said. So there's always this whataboutism that they use to try to reduce the credibility of our legitimate grievances for the way that we continue to be treated in America, and try to water down our movement so they can be completely dismissive of it.
I want to get Dr. White Muhammad, your commentary on Louis Farrakhan. When anytime there's a conversation that happens, and or Nick Cannon even mentioned the name Minister Louis Farrakhan. Let me be respectful, Minister Louis Farrakhan. It seems to cause this controversy. We did a show last week where we talked about imperfect allies. We had someone from the Jewish community that was on here, and he viewed Louis Farrakhan as an anti-Semite. Why do you feel like the dominant society has such a problem with Louis Farrakhan in his messaging?
First of all, Louis Farrakhan is looked upon as the litmus test for African Americans and white Americans, and that is, if you condemn, they ask you questions. If you can condemn Minister Farrakhan, then you're good with us. If you support him, if you're just on the stage with him, then something is wrong with you. It's not that Minister Farrakhan critiques, and that's what he does. He critiques white America. He critiques Jewish America and Jewish society like he has the right to. But it's at the point that when he critiques them, they don't like it, because while he is critiquing them, he is also giving a perspective on Black society, what we should do, how we should do it, how we can be progressive. And like it or not, Minister Farrakhan has been consistently the strongest Black voice in Black America in the last 40 years. Mm-hmm. He is the only one, 1995, who brought out 1.5 million people to the Washington Mall. 2005, another million. 2015, about 500,000 people. He is the only one who can do this. So they don't want you to listen to a Minister Farrakhan because he gives you a broad perspective, but also detailed as to what is taking place. He is just the latest one. I mean, anytime there's a Black man who speaks out on issues that are concerning to us, they are denigrated. As the bishop says, they're destroyed. Paul Robeson, all right, he's a prime example. A brilliant man from Jersey, went to Princeton University, I believe, a Rhodes Scholar. But because he critiqued America and he stated that perhaps we need to look at issues of communism, they blacklisted him. He couldn't get a job. He lost his living. Well, here's another one. Conrad Lynn, one of the greatest lawyers out of Harlem that you don't know of, who was Malcolm X lawyer, who had helped to create the March on Washington in 1944, and later on in 1963, he was isolated, couldn't win a case, but he was smart, he was strong, and he was tough. Malcolm X, the same one. We didn't start loving Malcolm until the 1990s, really, 1980s, because he was safe, he was dead. But they don't understand that when you have a person like Minister Farrakhan, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, it resonates with us because he's telling us things that are true, things that we believe, and he feels our pain. And the white community and the Jewish community do not want anyone to feel, they don't want you to feel your pain, to put it that way. And the worst thing that can happen on the last point is for people like Lamont here, which I like very much, and people like Cannon to apologize. All right, you don't apologize. All right, you say what you say and mean what you say.
Well, let me play devil's advocate, because there's going to be some people that view this and look at this and say, well, he called Nick Cannon called white people savages, right? He said that they were barbaric. So should he not apologize to that?
I put it like this. Hugo Black was a Supreme Court justice. He is a member of the KKK. No one has ever apologized for him being a member of the KKK. Woodrow Wilson, a president of the United States who saw the movie Birth of the Nation that castigated Black people as savages and castigated the KKK as a wonderful freedom rights group for white people. His people never apologized for that. Lyndon Baines Johnson, a person that we love so much in the civil rights movement, and as a president, when he was a young man, he was a member of the KKK. Harold Byrd is another one. Until they begin to apologize, all right, for their activities, no, we should not apologize for any of that, because first of all, Cannon has a right to say what he said. He did not say anything wrong. He was reviewing and he was interviewing Professor Griff. He said some things that Professor Griff said that was right. That doesn't mean that he said everything. That doesn't mean he agreed with everything. He said some things. All right. He should not have lost his job. Mark Ahill, when he made his statement at the UN, he said some things about the Palestinians having the right to be on the West Bank. That is not wrong. But when we begin to push ourselves in a position of apologizing for everything that we say in reference to the Jewish community or any other community, we lost a valuable point. And that point is self-determinism. We have a right to speak. We have a right to express our views. And guess what? Sometimes you're not going to feel comfortable. And in this fight for justice, they shouldn't feel comfortable. And one last point on this. I mean, a few weeks ago, 58 countries, but the UN had an emergency meeting to condemn the United States for racism and police brutality. Now, this is how the white community, the Jewish community in Australia, and many European societies changed it. They forced the Black African countries to water down their perspective by saying this: yes, America is racist, but a lot of countries are racist too. So therefore, all these countries started to rise up, and you're thinking primarily they're for the Black Lives Matter. Yes, they are, but they were also for the element of their own brutality because the United States lumped them into that mix. And when you lump something into a mix like that, you lose your narrative and you lose your strength.
Yeah. I want to.
Can I piggyback just a brief moment?
Yeah, go ahead.
So did Nick Cannon lie? Of course, you know, when we talk and we say white people, we don't mean all white people. Just like when we say black folk, we don't mean all. But when you talk about savagery and barbarism, who was it that came up with beheading people and putting their heads on spikes? Who was it that came up with drawing and quartering people? Who was it that came up with cutting folks open and pulling their guts out as a form of punishment or of torture? Who was it that came up with tarring and feathering, and who came up with burning people at the stake? Who was it that came up with hanging people from trees and all of this? So when you think about what he said, the level of violence and war and bloodshed that has literally been enacted across the globe by white folks, you would have to say there's a level of savagery and barbarism in their history.
Well, let me put it out, and I'll put this out to everyone. Morgan, Javonni, and Alan, and Vince. Has our history, right? Has history, actually not even our history, has history been so whitewashed, and have we had such revisionist history that if someone even tries to tell the truth about the history, or specifically the experience of African American, they're immediately vilified? We're young and we're in that same bracket. Do you feel like that?
Yo, look, I don't know about y'all, but there's a lot of Black power on this Zoom. You know what I'm saying? I mean, between Ginger's background and the bishop, I'm ready to punch the next white boy I see. I hope I don't got no Amazon packages. I hope it ain't no Amazon coming in my house tonight, because he gonna get it. I'm gonna stomp him out, bro. But no, I agree. I think that is a point, man. And I think that there is definitely a tolerable history that wants to be told, right? Like there's a history that they want to hear that makes them feel better, because there's so much savagery. I'm gonna say it, savagery in US history specifically, that when you start to focus an eye on it, it's too much to take, right? Like, can you imagine today getting an invitation to a picnic with a man who's gonna be lynched in front of you for, and bring the kids, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is the type of history that they wanna hide. So when you start speaking this stuff, it makes them extremely uncomfortable. Now, I will say this, and as much as I love Nick Cannon, even though as a proud FAMU, and I'm a little upset with him for going to Howard, it's all good though. We forgive him for that. We
have to forgive him. We have to forgive.
But the only thing that I will say, and this is not in defense, if I could play devil's advocate, like Brother TJ said, is a lot of the folks that was mentioned by the bishop, unfortunately, were not hired by corporations. And that's the one thing that has Nick in a quandary, is that he actually has someone who signs his check, as opposed to like Lyndon B. Johnson, who was elected. Actually, not even elected. He ended up being the president by default. So, I mean, he didn't even run for re-election. He didn't have the guts to do that. So the only problem, and Nick has a history of this. Like, I know, Nick is a hidden Black Panther. His father, if you look his father up, his father is like gung-ho. Like, I'm sure he probably knew Eldridge Cleaver himself. He probably know where he is right now, over in Algeria. So I'm trying to bring it into perspective. He could say what he wants. It's when you say what you want and have to answer to a company that signs your check is when he unfortunately starts getting in trouble. And that's the problem, because I don't
that
think
was actually
outside the truth.
No, someone in the chat, Austin does Ashton Mack. I call him Mac, so I know who this is. He does work in the community. He's one of the new breed activists, I like to say, right? And he tends to disagree. We're gonna look at some of these things. He tends to disagree. He says that he said freedom of speech isn't freedom of consequence, but he also says that the comment that he feels was that he thinks that everybody feels was racist was the comment was melanin or lack of it makes them savages. I didn't.
Well,
you want to touch on? Go ahead.
You know, I think what he was simply saying was that if you check the history of white Europeans, those who colonized everywhere in the world, that went across the continent of Africa from the top to the bottom, from immediately below the Saharan all the way down to South Africa, and colonized lands and murdered indigenous people, and then you trace their track from Africa through the Caribbeans to South America to North America. The wave of bloodshed is undeniable. It's documented. It's historic, and it was folks who had a lack of melanin who did that. And I think he was using a way of words. He might have been a little hyperbolic in the way he said it, but what he said was actually factual. And see, here's my problem is facts don't make you racist. And that is the narrative that white folks have today, is when you say something about our history that makes us feel uncomfortable, that triggers our white fragility, you're racist. You're a race baiter. And so what they want to do is beat you into submission so you never do that again. What the doctor said earlier is so true. The clear and concise message to Black people from the Jewish community. And here's where white folks all come together, regardless of their political ideology. It comes from the Jewish community, it comes from white liberals, and it comes from the gaslighting, white supremacy supporting conservatives, that either you condemn Minister Farrakhan or we will ruin you. It's the litmus test. If you do not condemn Minister Farrakhan, we're coming after you. And that's a point where they all will join ranks together, to come after you, because the danger of a Minister Farrakhan is being a free Black man who does not answer to any white bosses. See, I have people who come at me all the time. They call my church, they call my denomination. They're looking for a manager that they can report me to. They're looking for somebody they can get me in trouble with. They've called TJU and I IOTAs. They've called the Grand Polaris because I'm the national chaplain of IOTA, because they want to find somebody in authority over me.
Oh, they call all the time on me.
Yeah, that they can influence to say, hey, you need to fire this guy. You need to take a contract from him. You need to, dismiss him in some kind of way. But the danger that I have toward them is I don't have no white bosses. There is no manager that you can call and get no contract that you can take away from me. I'm my own boss. I get supported by Black people. And that's the danger of a Minister Farrakhan, is they can't control him. They can't, there's no Viacom that can fire him. And so that's why they want you to repudiate him, or we're going to come after you.
Well, here's what I want to say, because I got somebody in the chat saying that everybody is being racist. So I'm going to go ahead and address it, because I know this person and they can come and talk to me anytime in Orlando if they want to. There is an intrinsic fear that white people have, right? And it's an intrinsic fear of genetic annihilation, whether people want to admit it or not. It's called the browning of America. Please do your research. This is why legislation and these anti-abortion laws are coming into place all across the country. This is why certain things are happening in this country. Why Trump wants to build a wall. Why there's such pushback against immigration. Why we're talking about black and brown people who are being killed by law enforcement officers. It's an intrinsic fear. It's the elephant in the room. So to be on a independent Black media outlet to talk about these things and bring truth to power, to tell our stories. Look, it's not about and here's my problem. Sometimes we got to stop. We love white folks more than we love ourselves. You see what I'm saying? Racism, right? Racism, in order to be racist, black folks can't be racist, right? Because racism, you have to have it is an institution, right? That you have to have in order for you to be racist. So to sit there and say an all black panel who's talking, it's a label as racist is complete ignorance of the fact. So I wanted to make sure I stated that. But I want to tell everybody to jot this out to everybody. Real quick, the people, Nick Cannon was fired from Viacom. We're going to do a quick game to keep or cancel. Alan, Javonni, and Morgan, and Vince. Should the other comedians who are cast members on Wild 'N Out, should they still participate or work for Wild 'N Out without Nick Cannon's leadership? I'll start with Vince.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I've already heard from a bunch of them. Mo, Rip, E-Man, they won't do it. The way they feel about it is that Nick Cannon put them on. Nick gave them platform. They will feel completely disloyal doing it without Nick. So as a matter of whether they should or not, of course they should, but will they is the question. And I think the answer to that is no.
Yeah. What do you think?
But I mean, once they start, talk about bringing up the Wild 'N Out girls again, they might reconsider, you know what I'm saying? Because that is, quite a little extra cost.
Bro, Morgan, what do you think?
Me personally, I think if they stay on, then what eggshells are they going to be working on? Because now you're basically saying that, okay, we're going to be quiet. We're not going to speak, we have an opinion about something. I feel like that would be like, they'll be putting themselves in a position to be controlled even more. Because then it's going to be like, all right, Nick, we let you go, but we still got your people. You know what I mean? We're going to use these people. We're going to, they're now our peons. We're going to use them to, make what we did as far as letting you go right. Because obviously,
to set a precedent.
Because if these other these other niggas think gonna stay, then obviously they feel like you were wrong as well.
Yeah.
They already did. They already did that. They did that with him on AGT. They replaced him and got Tyra, and then got Terry Crews.
Oh,
so I mean, that's kind of how they get down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alan, what do you think?
Okay.
Should they stay? Go ahead, Alan. Should they stay or should they go?
A hard no. That brand is only built strictly because of the talent. Once the talent leaves, the brand is over. They can create something else. So I think that they should, if wherever Nick goes, they should go.
Okay. What about you, Javonni? Same thing?
I agree. Yep, I definitely agree. I mean, it's Nick Cannon. He can definitely just start something for them, and I'm pretty sure they can make it happen without Viacom. So
yeah, this is why I think this is why we have an independent Black media outlet, is because it is why people have asked me, hey, can we invest? Hey, we're watching the Soapboxx. If I have to compromise the content or we can't speak freely on things that we want to talk about, then there's no reason for us to be partnering up with anybody. And so Dr. White Muhammad, I wanted to talk with you about just that. Our icons who, like Colin Kaepernick, Muhammad Ali, it just seems that there's a tarring of a feathering. Almost Tariq Nasheed puts it perfectly. He talks about buck breaking. Like, in order for you to be successful as a Black man specifically, or as a Black woman in business or white corporate America, or even in media, you have to be buck broken. Is this like are they trying to not reintroduce it, but are they trying to make sure that in this era of the Black Lives Matter movement, that it's front and center?
Yes, absolutely.
Is this the tarring and feathering of Nick Cannon, or in trying to break him?
Yes, to break our backs and to denigrate us and to weaken us. First, before I get into this, I just want your audience to pick up a book. It is called The Iceman Inheritance by Michael Bradley. This is a white boy, and he wrote a manuscript that talks about the beast-like nature and the savage nature of the white community, because they come from the northern part of the planet. And they're in that area, they're so cold, they become vicious. This is not a Black man saying it. This is not Elijah Muhammad. This is not Professor Griff. just to have that. It's an academic piece. It's a tremendous piece. It should be read. Well, in reference going back to Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X and Louis Farrakhan and the others, yes, it is the concept of trying to denigrate them, trying to reduce them to nothing in the eyes of Black America, because they know how we are as a group of people. If you break them, then we have a history of saying, oh, he wasn't any good, he was a troublemaker, he was a radical, he was insane, etc., etc., etc. So therefore, if you break the toughest guy on the playground, the one who is speaking out the greatest, you will reduce him to nothing. It's just like when you go to jail, you go and you hit the baddest guy. All right. When you go on a football field, you hit the toughest guy. It's the same way, but we have to change the narrative. That's the problem. All right. Because we have allowed them, as the bishop stated some time ago, to create the narrative as to what is successful, what is strong, what is great, and what is a proper leader. And a proper leader for us is one who speaks truth to power consistently. Yes. All right. And that's where it goes. And one that is independent. Like myself, I mean, I'm a professor, but I'm independent like a bishop. All right. One of the things the University of Central Florida came at me on, they said, well, you have a farm. What do you do having a farm? What the hell does it look like having a farm? I like to eat. All right. But they didn't like that type of independence. I can feed my own family. I can make my own money. So therefore, if they can keep you locked in, reduced in, then they denigrate your power and reduce you to nothing. Then they'll put some pseudo Negro in your place to be the leader.
Yeah.
All right. And that's what happens.
Go ahead, Alan. Touch on it.
I think one thing I do think that, and just in general with when we're speaking about these things, especially in Nick Cannon's case, I think that a lot of times information seems to be conflated when you're mixing in truth with conspiracy theory. And I think that's where Nick really fucked up, right? Because I don't think that, I went and I watched a whole hour and a half of Nick Cannon's interview. And I don't think that just the clip of him saying, you know, white people are evil because of X, Y, Z. I'm sorry, white people more barbaric for X, Y, and Z. Because since when have we seen the European Jews just come to the defense of all white people, right? It has to be more than that. And so I don't think that was the clip. I don't think it was just that clip. It was that, and it was accompanied with, he was speaking about the quote unquote hierarchy of the Jews that run the world. In his words, with the banks and the Rothschilds. That's something that the Jewish do not take kindly to. And the reason is because, and I was just doing a little bit of research, I was reading this because just going back, the Jews were, European Jews were regulated to working in banks when they were being discriminated against. And so since they were working in banks, they were stereotyped as being greedy and money hungry. So these stereotypes are something that has gone back for a while. So anytime someone brings that up now to say that they're almighty and they're powerful and they're money hungry, is not going to be taken well, right?
But they don't make an excuse, and they don't apologize for calling using conspiracy theory to call Minister Farrakhan a terrorist. They don't apologize by calling the Black Panther some extremist radical group that wanted to take over America. They consistently use conspiracy theories to negate us.
And I wanted to talk.
Use conspiracy theories to negate anyone or any society or any country that they don't like.
And I agree.
So we need to hold them to the same litmus test.
For sure.
I agree.
But I think that at that point, we're having a different conversation, right? I think a lot of times we feel as if because other people do things to us and they are less, they are condemned less, that a lot of times we feel like we should be able to mirror those things. And I'm not 100% sure if that's the way to go about it. Just because someone reflects evil on us doesn't mean that we can't hold ourselves accountable for the evil or even just that miseducation that we're giving off to other people. That shouldn't be the line, the eye for an eye per se. Because if I had our way and we had our way, anyone who would talk about black on black crime on a white network, they should be suspended too. Or anyone who just talks about shut up and dribble, because you're doing the same thing to us. You're talking about you're pushing stereotypes and you're putting these things out there about us, about black and brown people that has a long lineage. Same thing with blackface. Like these are things that people should be condemned for and they're not. So on the other end, if someone does condemn us for doing something that that may be rooted in some sort of deeper oppression, I'm okay with listening to them, because I never want to be that guy, because we're always on the other side. People are always saying, what about black on black crime to us, and bringing up Chicago and deflecting from why that is a dangerous rhetoric. So if someone's telling us that we may be perpetuating stereotypes in their community, and this is why this is wrong, I think a lot of times we do have to listen to it. And like I said, Nick Cannon was talking a lot of truth, but anytime you sprinkle in stereotypes and things that may not be 100% fact driven, they're going to knock out the 80% truth that you were speaking for that 20%.
So you're saying that it's almost like they're trying to make sure that if you're going to say it, you got to say it perfectly, because they're going to take the little nugget of things that may not be verified as the totality of the conversation.
For sure,
right?
Because
Okay.
it all becomes I
want to get to Bishop. I want to get to.
I'm sorry.
I want to get to. I want to get Bishop to chime in, but Bishop, isn't there a whole network? Didn't it just come out with Tucker Carlson that he's not reporting the facts, and they know that there's a whole network of perpetuating racial stereotypes towards blacks.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
I always hold that truth is not hate. I don't justify racist stereotypes in any way, shape, or form. I think people ought to do their research. They ought to become educated on the issues. And at the end of the day, let's not draw a false equivalency between stereotypes that came to define black folks as lazy, as prone to criminality, as biologically inferior, intellectually inferior, descending from chimpanzees, et cetera, with those things that are said about other folk. Some may be true and some may not be true. Let's ask the question: is there an inordinate amount of influence that the Jewish community has in the finance industry, in the music industry, in the television industry? You can do the research and you can find out the answers to those questions yourself. But I think those, what they call stereotypes, if they are stereotypes, are not designed to dehumanize them, to speak against their intellect and their humanity, such as it was done to black people. And so I think, we've got to draw the line in terms of what the stereotypes about us were and why they came into being in the first place. And I think that the other thing we have to look at is the hypocrisy of those who tell us don't associate with this one or that one because we have determined that they are anti-Semitic. When we have determined there are a whole lot of racist white folk that you have never repudiated, that you have never disassociated yourself from, including your mama and them, your uncle and them, folk that you sit at the table and have Thanksgiving dinner with. And see, while they have tolerated, supported, remained silent about anti-black and non-white bigotry, about systemic racism, about the extrajudicial murders of unarmed black people for eons, they have the unmitigated gall to muster up outrage at black people who refuse to capitulate to their mandates on who we're allowed to have as our leaders, who we need to unequivocally repudiate to prove to them, the perpetrators, the supporters, the passive participants, and the apathetic onlookers of our oppression, that we're not the racists. Why the hell do we have to prove to white folk that we ain't racist? I mean, that's some serious cognitive dissonance right there. So whether it's Minister Farrakhan, whether it's Toni Morrison, whether it's Nick Cannon, whoever it is, they don't have the right to tell us, prove to us you're not anti-Semitic, or prove to us you ain't racist by repudiating this black person that we don't like.
Nick Cannon did issue an apology, and I want to get to Javonni, because Javonni, you have that, and there was actually some reaction towards what Nick Cannon said by some celebrities, and I want to get everybody's reaction to that. Go ahead, Javonni.
Okay, so first, the reaction that I have is from Dwayne Wade, when he wrote on Twitter, and he was just like, Nick, we stand with you. Wait, I don't want to say what he did not say, so let me quote it directly from his Twitter account. He says, he initially tweeted, "We are with you," followed by a black fist, and keep leading the way. So, that his followers responded, like, wait, what's happening? Are you really supporting this? So then he later deleted that tweet and issued a second tweet to explain himself. And in that tweet, he wrote, "I want to clarify my now deleted tweet. I was not supporting or condoning what Nick Cannon specifically said, but I had expressed my support of him owning the content and brand he helped create." Followed by a prayer emoji. So after that received controversy, a third tweet comes out, and this is just when everybody was just like, okay, come on, y'all. So he then tweeted, "I was too quick to respond without being fully informed about his hurtful and anti-Semitic remarks. As you all know, I have a zero tolerance for any hate speech." Wait.
So TNT called him. Shaq was like, hey, you need Flash, you need to put your ass back in that seat.
Yeah, 3 tweets. So everybody's like, okay, wait, you need to make your decision up. You need to focus on your family, because things that he has going on. But he never responded after that. However, we do have celebrities who have supported Nick Cannon, and which one person, of course, is P. Diddy, and he wants Nick Cannon to come back over, if I'm not mistaken, to Revolt. So he tweeted, "The only way we can change the narrative, educate, and uplift each other is if we do it together. Nick, my brother, I am here to support you fully in any way you need." And he wrote that on Instagram on Wednesday alongside a photo of him and Nick Cannon. And he pretty much says, come on home to Revolt TV, and we'll take care of you there. So those were those 2 people who pretty much stood out for me. Who else? Anybody else? Let's see. I wasn't sure if the 50 Cent situation was serious.
I think 50 Cent, and I would love to hear Bishop's take on that as well as Vince and Alan. 50 Cent came out and he said, and I'm trying to paraphrase, and he was basically, but he's trying to troll, and that's kind of like 50's brand now.
Yeah.
Where he trolls everybody. Where he trolls everybody. But is there a time? There's a time and a place.
It's a time and a place.
If a brother's going through something, I don't know. I just kind of find it fair or foul. Even when Kevin Hart went through his situation, is there a time and a place? But I guess a troll doesn't have a.
Yeah, you talking about the dude that took Rick Ross' wife to the jury? Come on, bro. I mean, his baby mom. 50 Cent to have morality, man. Come on, bro. That's his whole game, man. Give me a break, TJ. You know that.
Yeah. Maybe am I Alan and Morgan, am I asking too much? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just getting ready to say that some, and it's sad to say, but we do have to admit it, that just like how people call Black people crabs, that exists. And I mean, on a higher level, even with 50 Cent, if we think he's joking or not, if your brother is in need and he's being fired, and then you're saying, I'm coming out with another show, with a very close name to what Wild 'N Out was already, it's just like, I don't find a joke in that. And it also sends out a message to other Black people, that when we are down, who really is going to pick us up if it's just ourselves? And I think, like you said, it just wasn't appropriate, for one. And then at the same time, you just question, like, what is your narrative? What are your real intentions as a Black man being successful, having these multiple shows? what are your real intentions of being really on here on earth as an impactful Black man? Like, are you really trying to impact and uplift Black people? Or are you just collecting the money and you don't really care where it's coming from? So, and I think that's what 50 Cent, that's what he's about. You know, he wants the money, and it's a lot of public figures who are like that, and 50 Cent openly does it. So who's gonna call him out is the next question.
Well, I mean, I'm saying, but I mean, in 50's defense, I'm not trying to, stick up for 50, but I mean,
that's what defense means, brother. Defense means stick up for somebody.
In his defense, I ain't trying to, I mean, I ain't saying he's right, but I am saying that, I mean, it's a free market, and 50 and Nick Cannon are both in the industry of providing entertainment. 50 has the show power. He tried to have a laugh show and he wasn't able to get it. Do I honestly think that he's gonna make a show? No. If he did, I think it'd be funny to see Tommy and Ghost and their son sitting there trying to do jokes with each other. But I don't think he's really serious. And in all honesty, I really don't understand like the whole Jewish, hatred between me and you. I'm not from a place where I grew up in St. Louis. And we didn't really have, a bunch of Jewish folks. To me, when I learned about, as far as I'm concerned, they seem like just white folks with 7 days of Christmas that like a lot of bagels. It doesn't really seem to be a really big difference.
It's big. It's big.
Well,
so I'm learning it now that there's a history in that the Hebrew heritage. But I mean, is it really a big difference? Because we're talking about Jewish people Jewish defines a religion which is baked into a people. But white is a race, which is technically defined by the way that you appear. So, I mean, what kind of parsing hairs, right?
I mean,
Dr. White Muhammad. Wait, Dr. White Muhammad, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, first of all, it's a political issue. Partly, yes, it is a racial issue because the original Jews were from the area that we call Afrique. We call that area now the Middle East. All right, they were dark-skinned people. The Hasidic Jews, the reason why they have the curls is to remind them of the coarse hair that their foreparents had, which was people who look like us. However, now when you talk about in the United States, it's a political issue because the Jewish community has manipulated as well as created a monopoly on what is suffering. So therefore, if anyone else talks about suffering, therefore they have to go through their angle. They are the ones to say, I suffered. Now I'm gonna put, this is very interesting because when they talk about suffering, they talk about the 8 million people or so that was killed under Hitler in Nazi Germany. Now check this out. If we look at the number of people who were killed by the KKK directly and indirectly from the 1870s to now, it would be over, our estimates are over 3 million people. So therefore, that's in the United States. All right, so therefore, they don't have a monopoly on suffering and genocide. We have given them a pass. So therefore, when you have a Cannon or a Hill or even a Congress lady Omar who apologizes, then go and say, I didn't understand your suffering. What does that do? That is a castration of you in public. And you can never rebuild from that. And they will never accept you. That's why it is so important that we have to look at our history. Don't keep falling into those games. Know the history, know the fact, be like Malcolm and speak the truth. All right, then of course you develop an independence like the bishop has. But once you accept that element of apology and going to them and let them lecture you, you have lost it. Case in point, who does that for you? Who calls you a Negro or a nigger and talk about how savage you are, then go to you and say, listen, can you teach me about your suffering? No one. What they do, they go to a doggone Black History program and they sing and cry crocodile tears during Martin Luther King's birthday, but they would never come and really learn from you because they're not interested.
Yeah, I don't necessarily, I get the opportunity for more education and understanding other people's cultures, But when it comes to anti-blackness, Bishop, we don't require field trips. Like, I've never seen that. Like, this is a new, what I look at as a new wave where it's like, hey, you got to talk to this rabbi or go to this synagogue.
Yeah,
And like,
that's
there's
foolish.
there's anti-blackness in a lot of different cultures. And I don't see too much of that on the mainstream where it's like they're forcing people to go and understand the plight of Black people, because if we did do that, a lot of this stuff that's going on, we wouldn't have to march in the street and lobby for in this country. Your thoughts?
Let's
think
just
that-
let's be truthful about.
I'm gonna get you, Alan, after Bishop. Go ahead, Bishop.
As the doctor was saying just a moment ago, when you look at the history of it, anywhere between 6 to 10 million is estimated of Africans died in the Middle Passage alone. That doesn't count the 3 million that the doctor talked about that died here in America, what is called America now. I think the suffering of our people through the transatlantic slave trade and through 238 years of enslavement and the 155 years that have been subsequent to that of brutality, dehumanization, and oppression is without parallel. But the problem is white folks in America or in Europe and other places that whose hands are stained with the blood of our people do not want to hear about our history. They don't want the focus to be on our history because that triggers their white guilt. Now, the thing you have to understand, as the doctor so eloquently alluded to, what they call the Middle East. Now, first of all, the term Middle East did not come into existence until the 1850s, after they constructed the Suez Canal, a man-made waterway that basically separated what's called the Middle East from Northeast Africa, because prior to that time, it was all Northeast Africa. And the people who lived in that area were Black people like you and I. Those who occupy the modern state of Israel that came into existence in 1948 after World War II were European Jews, okay? And Europeans are white folks who had a hand in the oppression of Africans and Black people. That is in their DNA. That is part of their history. So when folk act like they're shocked when I say there's white supremacy in Israel, because they say, well, they're Jewish, they're not white. Well, Judaism is a religion. I understand politics plays into that as well, but they are Europeans. They are white folks. Those that occupy there now, though, they are not the historical Jews of antiquity or beyond that. But they are since 1948. And so if we talked about the history of the oppression and dehumanization of Black people, they had a hand in that, as well as Europeans from every nation, whether you're talking about France or England, or if you're talking about Dutch folk or Polish folk or whoever you're talking about. And so, no, they don't want to go to no museum to learn about the suffering of Black people. They don't want to hear about any of that because their ancestors are guilty of it, and they passed down their racist mentality, and they have perpetuated that mentality to contemporary society.
Hey, Bishop,
Vince, before you go, I want Alan had a point. I want to get Alan to give his point, and then I really want us to touch on Breonna Taylor, and Morgan has that story as far as the protests and stuff, because I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Alan, make your point.
Yeah, well, a couple of things, because I know a couple of people brought it up just with the conflation of religion and race. That was another point that I was reading and listening to people talk about how they felt as if Nick was conflating the two, because a lot on that podcast he was saying that, the Black Jews were the original Jews, which is right. But essentially they felt that he was kind of dismissing the Ashkenazi Jews by saying that we're coming back for what is ours. And essentially they felt that, their lineage and their into Judaism for as much as anyone else's. So they felt that was a little bit of dismissive by just saying that Black people had a monopoly on Judaism, which is another reason why he was coming under heat. But to what you guys were saying, as far as the blowback, as far as Black people, the courtesy not being extended to learn our history, it's very simple. There's absolutely no consequence for anti-Blackness in any sector of the corporate world or any hierarchy in media, or because all you're going to do, even if you were to get fired, you'll just move to another media outlet that caters to that audience. Correct. So unfortunately, until we get some sort of power in the media space or even other arenas where there's consequences to being uneducated and spewing hateful rhetoric, it's not going to be as big of a deal until we make it a big of a deal. And then that's where we have to come as a community, and we have to rally around each other and say, no, not only do I not like that you said that, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire just like everyone else holds their community feet to the fire. So.
Bad. Vince, real quick, go ahead.
Oh man. Well,
I called you in the back of the class.
No. I was gonna ask Bishop a question, but it's gonna take way too much time now. I wanted to ask him how he felt when people try to bring up how Black people had Jews in captivity during Moses' time, and try to well, you guys had Jews in slavery first. So that's like a whole other issue. I can
put it real quick. That was a case of Black folk enslaving Black folk. That was Egyptian Black folks enslaving Hebrew Black folk during that day and age. So they can't flip it and act like it was Black folk enslaving white folks, because the Jews during that time were not the European Ashkenazi Jews that inherit the land today.
I'm gonna make sure that everybody gets their last word or moral of the story as we do our segment every time. But before we do that, Morgan, our guest contributor, give us an update on what's going on in Kentucky. There were some arrests. What's going on with Breonna Taylor in her case in the support justice for her?
Yeah, so as we all know, Breonna Taylor was murdered in her home during a no-knock warrant that was issued, with the narcotics department in Louisville. So basically what happened this past few days, there was a peaceful protest going on at the home of the Attorney General, Daniel Cameron. Tamika Mallory, she has co-founded a social group called Until Freedom. And so that's the group. They were doing pretty much like a peaceful sit-in at the home. They were asked to leave, and of course, with a sit-in, we're here to, take a stance, and we want to, our voices to be heard, because those officers have not been arrested. So 87 people were arrested during the sit-in. They were jailed on felony charges. Intimidating a participant in a legal process is what makes it a felony. There were some celebrities that were arrested during this protest. NFL player Kenny Stills, Portia Williams, Yandy Smith. Of course, she's always on the front line with something going on with the community, Black community. YBN Corday, he's a hip hop artist, and so is Trader Truth. If y'all know any of them, I personally don't know anything about Trader Truth, but YBN Corday is. But me personally, just watching everything and reading the article and going over there, I had the question of, who do we really hold accountable? Do we hold the officers who were basically following orders?
Right.
You know what I mean? Or do we put this blame in the person who gave the orders? Like who initiated, you can do a no-knock warrant, you know what I mean? And then you've already sit these officers in here under the pretense of this is a narcotic investigation and there's a criminal within this home. So it's like, who do we give that blame to?
That's
America.
The whole damn system is guilty as hell.
We give it to everybody involved. Listen, if I go to the bank with my boy and he goes in and robs the bank, and I had no idea what he was doing, and he comes out, jumps in the car, takes off, guess who's going to jail?
Everybody.
both of us.
Rico
They're gonna
law.
call me an accessory to the crime, even though I had nothing to do with it. The reality is the police officer who obtained the no-knock warrant lied on the application in order to get the warrant. He lied and said Breonna was receiving suspicious packages at her home. She was not. They got the no-knock warrant under false pretenses. When they got there and busted the door open, Breonna's fiance, who is a licensed gun owner, who did not know who was breaking into his house, fired a shot at them as anybody would to protect their family. And they were all irresponsible, firing wanton shots back in the house, not knowing who they were hitting, not knowing if there were children at home, if there were other people at home. It was reckless endangerment of life and property, and everybody involved in that debauchery needs to be arrested.
And the sad
When it comes down to after World War II, many Nazi Germans who were soldiers, they tried to raise the argument that they were taking orders. Well, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, the World Court, stated that that is not an excuse when it comes down to human rights. All right. So therefore, because if you're doing something, it is on you, even though you're taking an order. So that is no excuse. That has already been established by the World Court. It shouldn't even be an argument.
I think that's the delay and everything.
Go ahead, Morgan.
Even the Attorney General says that there's no timeline for when his office will conclude the investigation. To me, that just says we're trying to figure out who's gonna take the blame, who's gonna go down for this. Somebody's got to take one for the team. And I agree, it should be everyone. But they're stalling because they want to say, okay, which one of y'all gonna take? Who's gonna take the fall for this?
So they just
They
playing a
gonna put it
bingo
on the
game.
cops.
Yeah.
And they're putting it on the back burner. You know what I mean? Which in itself is an insult. You know, you arrest protesters and charge them, want to go ahead and charge them with a felony, without a second thought about it. But you there's no timeline for you to conclude an investigation.
Yeah.
That's
And
why
it
this has
also
to go
puts
to the international courts.
it also puts the NFL when it comes to Kenny Stills. It also puts the NFL in a bind because what are you now? Kenny Stills, who supported Colin Kaepernick, who took a knee, are you now going to suspend him for now having this felony arrest on his record and having to deal with this?
And they will, because we live in a world now where it's like, shut up already. We've allowed you to live the life that we're living. That should be enough. What are you up in arms about? What are you you shouldn't have a reason to want to talk about some shit that happened a long time ago. We're still seeing it today. So it's like, just, shut up. We've given you what we feel you should have, and it's like, no, that's our right. We have our right to live this life.
Yeah. I think I definitely think the crime is that there's legislation passed in Breonna Taylor's name, but yet still her and her family have no closure. There's no justice at all. And so thank you, Morgan, for that story, because we want to keep the pressure on the streets. Definitely want to keep the folks aware and knowledgeable about what's going on with her case, and making sure that we're all of these cases that come up. We have a segment here, and I know we have a crush on time, so I'm gonna start with Bishop, but we have a segment here on the Soapbox for those who are watching. It's called our moral of the story. It's our time to summarize, put a bow on the conversation, and speak our truth. So I know we're pressed for time, but I'm gonna go to Bishop first. Bishop, thank you so much, and make sure you plug your social media where people can also follow you. Bishop, what's your moral of the story?
First, I want to thank you, TJ, for having me. I want to thank your entire panel for a very insightful conversation. I ask you to continue to pray for my sister, Tamika. She was just with me on last Wednesday, working hard to bring justice for Breonna Taylor. I think the moral of this for me is that for far too long, white folks have tried to convince us who are the respectable and responsible Black people that we should embrace, and who are the disreputable and irresponsible Black people that we should reject and repudiate. These decisions are always based on what's in the interest of their agendas and not the agenda of the Black community. In essence, Black people are fed up with white folks dictating who our leaders should be, who we're allowed to respect and support. And so we rally to protect people who we may not even necessarily agree with. There are folk who will rally around Farrakhan. They will rally around Nick Cannon and others that disagree with them just because they're tired of you all attacking them or them being attacked by our historical enemy that has never acted in the best interest of our people. And so I see it as the arrogance of white folks to determine who we should reject, who we should meet with cynicism. And so we're saying that we will select our leaders. We will support who we want to support. You do not have the right to tell us who to reject, who to repudiate, who to castigate. As long as you continue to embrace white supremacists in your family, among your friends, among your spouses and your children, you need to stop telling Black people, whether it's Farrakhan or anyone else, who we cannot support.
Thank you so much, Bishop. And please let your sister Tamika Mallory know we appreciate her work here on the Soapbox. She is welcome here anytime on the Soapbox to speak her truth, as well as people like Tariq Nasheed. So, and I know you in course contact with them. So please relay that message.
I'll be with Tariq when he does the filming of Buck Breaking. So look out for that.
Oh, love that. Also, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me at Talbert Swan on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Periscope, wherever it is, at Talbert Swan.
Yeah, I got my fire alarm going off. Nothing's going on, everybody. I'm okay.
Oh, you stay to the next ride, huh?
You just got a little hot.
It just
Are you
happens.
calling from Wendy's?
Yeah.
Can you silence it?
Yeah, I'm trying. It will come off in a second. I apologize, everybody.
Yo, bro. Yo, mac and cheese is ready.
I'm gonna start with Vince. Vince, go ahead. What's your moral of the story?
All right. Well, first, don't
mute
let
the mic.
My muffins are done, so go ahead.
Hey, come on, bro. This man over here cooking donuts, cooking. Hey, first of all, don't let Will and Jada distract you from the fact. Now let me stop. I think Nick is gonna be okay. I mean, the moral of the story for me is there may be a low-key plot for Nick to have been fired on purpose just so he could run against Kanye this year. I'm hoping that's what it was. Maybe not. I don't know. But I don't think that Nick is going to really have a problem getting back on his feet, so to speak. I mean, let's just be real. Wilding Out was like seasons upon seasons deep, and he still has his job with Fox, so he's still going to be with The Masked Singer. And if we know anything about Nick, man, when he gets knocked down, he comes back even harder. So I'm actually looking forward to the bounce back. I got a feeling it's going to be even tougher than the original. And I'm actually happy that this does galvanize the community. I do think he was a victim of a trend because we did see this domino effect with Deshaun Jackson. And then they tried to kind of bring Steven Jackson into it after he defended Deshaun Jackson, all about the anti-Semitic stuff. And now they're kind of bringing Nick in with it as well. So I think that there's a little bit of a cascade of domino effect going on there. But again, one person who is consistently bounced back after he lost Mariah Carey, after he left NBC, after all of these different things, he's shown that his blackness, his melanin is resilient. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how he bounces this back. That's the moral of my story. I think TJ is still making sure his biscuits ain't burning in that oven.
No, it's done. I just didn't unmute my mic, funny guy. Listen, Javonni, what's your moral of the story?
My moral of the story is people ought to be uncomfortable when Black people want to voice their opinions about the things that we've been through and the things that we believe. It should make you uncomfortable because we were and have been silenced for years. So honestly, I just really feel like anytime we as a culture try to produce comfortable narratives, you know, we're always going to be in the same place. And I think by having people like Nick Cannon, people like Dr. Muhammad, Pastor, us being vocal about what's really happening and how we feel about situations, and if we support another person or if that was just outright wrong, you know, those are really those are the ways that we're going to learn, or those are going to be those are going to be our history books about this happened, this took place, and they stood up for this and they fought for this and they did that. I mean, if you just think about Rosa Parks and how they diluted her story to just her being like some seamstress that was tired on the bus, you know, and it was just like, okay, well, before that, she was fighting against white women raping multiple Black women, and how that all came about. But we only know a diluted version of her story. So, you know, just like how the historians on here, that's what I call you all, said we have to read. I feel like that's what we have to do. And we can't make ourselves small so other people can feel big, you know? So I just want to acknowledge activism and just kind of get rid of the narrative that we as a culture will continue to produce comfortable narratives so other people can feel good about themselves.
Dope. Morgan, thank you so much for being our guest contributor today. What is your moral of the story?
A few things. First, I want to say thank you for having me. I really appreciate, you know, you asking me to come on. My moral of the story is, as it's always been, we cannot afford to miss this opportunity. We have a momentum going, and we got to keep it going strong. We got to stick together. I feel like what's happening now is we're being made an example out of. So, you know, Nick Cannon was someone that they had to make an example out of, to say, you know, he's a successful Black man. You said something we didn't like. We're going to make an example out of you so the rest of your people can see that we're not going to tolerate you guys speaking out or having feelings about something, you know, that we feel is, you know, wrong or what have you. I just feel like they're reminding us who runs this world, who world this is, who's in control. Because they, you know, we may be getting a little bit too out of hand. We're gonna let you niggas get out here in the street and protest. We're gonna give you your Black Lives Matter street, but don't get on your platform saying too much, or we're gonna have to put you back in your place. I think, you know, like everyone said, we need to educate ourselves and make sure we know what we're talking about when we speak. Stand firm in what we're talking about. You know, be unapologetically Black, and not keep apologizing for our greatness, you know what I mean, and speaking out for the things that we feel like is not right. So that's pretty much just, you know.
I appreciate it. And plug your podcast and your show.
Oh yeah, Bottomless Conversations, Facebook, Instagram, you know, all that good stuff.
Appreciate it. Young Ginger Ale, Alan York, what's your moral of the story?
Hey, I'm in and out. Stay Black, stay educated. Don't believe everything on the internet. And remember, feelings ain't facts and facts ain't feelings.
Love it. Special thanks to you, Dr. V. Issa White Muhammad. What is your moral of the story?
I want to thank you for allowing me to be on this fine show with these wonderful people. We have to hold our narrative. We have to control the narrative. We must stop apologizing for statements that people may not like, that we're in this fight, and this fight is a long fight. This is the second wave of not the civil rights movement, but of the human rights movement. And we have to take this internationally if we're going to be successful. Let us control this narrative, give it up to no one, nobody, no place, nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you. And if anybody wants to, where can they find you, Dr. White Muhammad?
Well, my articles are all over, but you can, here's my email if you want. And that is wmvent@gmail.com. You have that, you can post it.
Also, I wanted to ask.
Go ahead,
I wanted
Javonni.
to ask about the book you mentioned earlier.
Yes, Iceman Inheritance. It's by Michael Bradley. It came out around 1994. And it was very interesting because during this period of time, there was a new wave and a new movement of Black nationalism with Minister Farrakhan, Khalid Muhammad, Public Enemy, and so forth. This white boy wrote this manuscript out of Canada and stated that, yes, there's something wrong with the Caucasian. And it is connected to our melanin. So therefore, he did scientific proof. That is one piece that they don't mention. And as for the young people who's on the line, mention this. And that is when you say something, say it with 2 or 3 books, all right? With fact and proof. They can't argue against you. They just have to shut up, all right? But if you have 2 or 3 books that you know well that has an argument, use them. That's one of the strategies of Malcolm, if you listen to him very carefully.
Thank you. And thank you for that nugget. And my moral of the story is simply this. When I saw the emancipation of Nick Cannon, we can cross Nick Cannon's name off of that, because Nick Cannon is really, I believe, really is a proxy for all people within the Black community, right? So this idea that we have to be perfect in our articulation of our experience at any point in time, where if, like Alan's point, that if you say anything wrong or you sprinkle it with something that may not necessarily be factual, then it's that gotcha, aha, and that we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Independent and Black ownership is important. We shouldn't allow, and it's happened to me, and I've given my testimony on Soapboxx before, you shouldn't allow anybody to take your livelihood away just because you're standing on what you believe in. Freedom of, yes, you have freedom of speech, and yes, there are consequences for certain things, but if you have your own, like Nick Cannon said in his original remarks, you can't fire a boss. And so I think it's a slippery slope, right? Where we are firing people because Rush Limbaugh got the Medal of, I think it was the Medal of Freedom, right? He was exalted at the White House during the State of the Union address, but yet still Nick Cannon is getting vilified and he's being fired and he's being tar and feathered for his position. Now, whether he articulated his point correctly or not, that's up for debate. And this is why we have these type of conversations. However, if you own your own, that's the part that really bothered me the most, right? Especially with someone, Nick Cannon, who has influenced even the Soapboxx and what we do as far as having our own ownership. So I think ownership is very important. I love what you said, Dr. White Muhammad, about having books and reading and making sure we're doing our research. And please, anybody who has a problem with this podcast show, or this episode or this show, whatever, you have your opportunity to speak your piece. This is our opportunity to speak our piece. Everybody stands on their own positions. But if you are triggered by an all-Black panel speaking unapologetically Black, where we have business professionals, professors, reporters, comedians from in the entertainment industry, independent artists, we have journalists, all of us are professionals having this conversation. Please, if you are triggered by that, that's something that's inside of you, and please give that same energy to Fox News. Before you come over to us and start asking us, or how dare us, or calling us racist, make sure you have that same energy to the local media outlets who are out here misrepresenting African Americans in our communities every day. So we're not going to do this selective outrage when it comes to independent Black media outlets, but you're silent when it comes to the reporting that you see in your communities every day on the news, where you're not in the comment section trolling and asking them and calling them names and going after reporters. I was just vilified in the media, in the local media, Fox News the other day, and they had to, the other day, where they tried to make it seem like I had something to do with a crime, with vandalism. Right. And so they had to say a retraction. And I'm still working with my attorneys to get a copy of that retraction. So I didn't hear nobody coming out there saying, oh, this is wrong, this is racist, Fox News is racist. No. But you're quick to do interviews with them. So pump the brakes on the heat that you give the independent Black media outlet, because you are triggered about Black people speaking their piece, talking about history, and being unapologetically Black. This is what it looks like. And so I look forward to growing this platform, and I look forward to continuously continuing to grow our relationships with people like Vince, like Morgan, like Dr. White Muhammad, like Bishop. I appreciate you all. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, Soapboxx Podcast with 2X. This is the Soapboxx Podcast for Alan, for Dr. White Muhammad, for Morgan, for Vince Taylor. This is for Javonni. This is for Bishop. This is the Soapboxx Podcast. Peace.